When I used to think of Nintendo, I thought of passion. These people had vision, who believed in pushing the limits of how games should be played and how they should feel on their hardware, who held themselves to a standard of quality that rarely wavered, well above that of their competition. Even when their ideas didn't always land or hit the mark, you could still feel the traces of care and creativity left behind by those who were behind it and believed in the vision. Games that had heart, powered by unique, sometimes quirky systems that had character. That is no longer Nintendo. It started bleeding out when we lost Satoru Iwata many years ago, and for me, the company flatlined with the departure of Reggie Fils-Aimé. What we got in their place weren't visionaries, they weren't game developers with passion, or even a creative vision that cared about the overall quality and experience that their products brought to the table. They were businessmen, the kind who treat games like spreadsheets and players like data points. And that entire philosophy, that emptiness, is now everywhere from Nintendo's hardware to their software and their overall modern brand identity. Nintendo was once an innovator in new ways to play video games, but now they're trying to play catch-up with the Switch too. Hell, even the reveal trailer that shadow dropped on all of us was just a reminder in my eyes of how many basic features Nintendo platforms have been missing out on for years. A 1080p screen? Welcome to 2009. 4K HDR output? It's 2025. PS4 Pro and Xbox Series X had those functions back in 2016. An LCD screen? Really? I'll bet you my bottom damn dollar that in 3 years we are going to see a Switch 2 OLED model drop to reinvigorate interest as hardware sales inevitably slump. 256 gigabytes of storage, 8 times that of the original, but the PlayStation 3 launched with the Slimline in 2009 with that amount and had 500 gigabytes by the time it was discontinued in 2013. Built-in voice chat. Good God, even the PS Vita, that disastrous train wreck of a platform, launched with cross-party chat in 2012 on day one, and it worked with PS4 1 year later. Why did it require a whole new hardware platform to finally get this function? Where's the messaging? Where's a better friend system? Oh wait, it's still not there. Reading the comments on the videos and some of the posts I've seen online have given me the impression that so many people are treating many of these upgrades as if there's some wonderful new thing, when the reality is that it just shows people like me from the outside looking in that have always treated Nintendo as sort of a secondary platform just how far behind the curve they've been for almost 2 whole decades now, and how much catching up they still need to do. The biggest shock with all of these upgrades, aside from the lack of online infrastructure still, is that the damn thing still doesn't have analog triggers. Good luck with those new upcoming GameCube ports, but they'll happily sell you a new wireless GameCube controller, and note that the GameCube was the last system from Nintendo that I can recall to possess analog triggers almost 25 years ago. Because only Nintendo would pull a move wherein they release a new platform in this day and age with such an important control input missing, then proceed to port older games to the same damn platform that requires said missing input. Which tells me that those $90 Joy-Cons that they're charging you for don't work with those games that you have to subscribe to in order to play and buy their controller. I don't know if it's an oversight at the hands of the corporate executives or what, but it's just a baffling decision when you look at it at face value. This by-the-books marginal upgrade doesn't really bring anything to the table in terms of bleeding-edge technology, and nor should it. Nintendo has never been about that. They've always been about affordability, utilizing older technology to bring new experiences to the home. But now Switch 2 doesn't even offer that. Hell, everywhere outside of Japan is being charged an extra $100 premium for the privilege of playing Nintendo games in other languages because fuck you. I'm sorry, but when I see a drastic price difference for the same damn product, even when taking account currency conversions and exchanges, I see nothing more than a corporation looking to fuck its users and bleed them dry just a little bit more. Not only because they can, but because many of them will be excited for the opportunity of it. But hey, I hear some of you Nintendo fans, this is a rough start to a video, a new platform is here, and I've been harsh focusing on the failures of Nintendo up to this point. Let's turn our attention to a few areas where Nintendo is now leading the industry. The first, the highest price video games across the board. Gone are the days of affordability. You want to play a barren, open-world, iOS-looking Mario Kart game with the same soulless art style that so many of their other most recent titles possess? $80. You want to play some Switch 1 titles with some half-assed upgrades that you should have had to begin with? $70 for a new Switch 2 branded cartridge, or you can pay $10 to upgrade if you already own an existing Switch 1 copy, physical or digital. You realize that many of the people out there that are going to buy these Switch 2 rebrands of Switch 1 titles are going to be paying more than those that bought these games when they were brand new at launch. They never got price cuts. There was never any sales, or rarely, I should say. And also, to focus back on that Mario Kart game, what could possibly justify setting a brand new industry pricing standard? What's funny is that Nintendo knows for a damn fact that this game is not worth that amount. In fact, by their own series of actions, they admit it. It's actually worth $50 because that's how much it costs when it's bundled with the system. You're not saving anything. In recent times, when has Nintendo ever bundled a new release with their system? Just look back a couple years to Animal Crossing New Horizons, Splatoon, and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Those bundles that were themed after those respective games didn't even come with the titles that the system was themed after. In fact, they made you pay more for that theme system with no packing game, in addition to paying the full price to get the game separately, both physical or digital. But now suddenly there's a change, conveniently right at the time they decided to hike their prices up. Give me a goddamn break. This is the same company that gave away Wii Sports at the behest of Reggie Fils-Aimé and became a cultural paradigm with the Wii in the early 2000s. Remember that time? Nintendo mopped the floor with the competitions in terms of sales. You couldn't get a Wii for like the first 2 to 3 years of its life because they were constantly sold out. Everyone had or wanted a Wii. Everyone had or wanted to play Wii Sports, from toddlers to grandma and grandpa. And I'm sure for many of you that is a core memory that many of you may cherish. I know I do, because it is one for me as well. But now this new leadership at the company has decided to give you nothing with your purchase. No free apps like the DS or 3DS. No tech demos like you got with the Wii U. You need to pay an extra $10 for the privilege to see what your new $450 system does out of the box. Otherwise, you can wait and go buy a game for full price, or stare at its soulless operating system for as long as you'd love. Let's talk about another area they're doing better than anyone in leading the charge within this industry: embracing industry trends. Hell, the first bit of this video was me rambling about Nintendo playing catch up with basic hardware expectations, so that's already been said. But let's go a little bit further. Their software is chasing trends. From Mario Kart's open world concept that it was done years ago by many other better franchises, and now it's okay because it's Mario Kart, and now because they're embracing a trend that was set a decade and change ago, now they can charge an extra $20 over its predecessor. Hey, but you got remasters coming in full force, taking a page out of Sony's abysmal handling and re-releasing old games on new cartridges with a $10 premium for this quote-unquote upgrade. It was shitty when Sony's Jim Ryan pushed for that initiative at the launch of PlayStation 5, and it is now shitty that Nintendo is doing it with their new platform. But when I look online, I only see one of these companies is catching a bunch of flack from it. Both Switch 2 and PS5 have launched with an anemic software catalog, only made worse by the concerning amount of re-releases, remakes, and remasters contained within it. Let's look at some of their other software. Nintendo Switch UI. They too have been chasing this soulless, tasteless, boring user interface, taking a page out of Windows 8, but cheapening it already even further by giving it two incredibly fitting, albeit hilarious options: Basic Black and Basic White. Gone were the days of care and customization in Nintendo's user interface that they really didn't have to do, but ran with it despite the hardware performance limitations, and they created so much character as you navigated through their little menus and saw all these nice animations playing. And after 8 years of the Switch's presence on the market, the best they can come up with for their successor was the same damn thing with some rounded corners and a few circles thrown in to take a page or two out of Apple's playbook. No themes, no character, no heart or soul. Just quick, cheap, corporate slop thrown together to get the job done. The epitome of the absolute bare fucking minimum. And it's even more disappointing to me because Nintendo has so many great characters and worlds that can make some amazing interactive themes and musics for the backgrounds of the Switch UI, but they just don't care because they know so many of you are going to buy this damn thing anyway. Why put that little bit of extra care and thought into something when people will be happy with the bare minimum anyways? Let's talk about the third area they're leading the charge with, and this one speaks to me personally: the death of physical media. It's bad enough that Sony and Microsoft have allowed third parties to get away with putting so many Blu-ray discs into becoming nothing more than glorified activation keys that trigger a download from some back-end server on the network. But now, Nintendo has not only embraced that philosophy, but created a whole new category for it. A distinctive feature on the box art. Fuck paying extra for larger capacity cards to actually store the game. just slap a license key on the cheapest piece of shit they can manufacture and let the user carry the burden of trying to find space to store it. At least when Sony and Microsoft disks have to install a game's data from an optical disc, it is transferred from the disk to the SSD to eliminate any of the time it takes for loading and accessing certain pieces of information in order for the game to work. It takes time, but with an SSD, it's quick. Nintendo, they use cartridges, flash memory. The data is all there and quickly available and accessible to the system as it's needed. There's no spinning optical disc or seek time to overcome. This is just them trying to reduce the costs of manufacturing on their end to maximize profit so they can sell you a download key at full cost, only to push the burden of that decision onto you, the customer. What's that? Your paltry 256 gigabytes of onboard storage from 2009 on your $450 tablet you just bought is already filled up because you tried playing Hogwarts Legacy or Cyberpunk 2077 or any of these other AAA games that are going to be massive in file size? Well, fuck you. Go shell out another $50 to $100 to buy a micro SD express card in the hope that it will last you. But hey, at least they're red like Nintendo, and maybe they have Mario or some Pokemans on them to help ease the hole you just burned in your wallet. The whole situation at this point is just maddening, and I'm sure there are going to be a lot of you that enjoy your purchase, but you know what? I hope you do. But the fact of the matter is this entire industry has become overrun with people disconnected from their user bases. Hell, Reggie Fils-Aimé even predicted this industry's entire predicament almost 20 years ago, so let's have a listen.
The graveyard of any industry is filled with the headstones of companies who decided to keep doing things the same old way, playing only on the margin, making things just a little bit better. That strategy works for a while, but ultimately it's fatal. Over the years, our industry has come to accept progress simply by what's on the screen.
After doing the research for this video and stumbling across that speech from Reggie Fils-Aimé, it's just made me realize that Nintendo themselves has become nothing more than a Me Too hardware manufacturer in an industry they themselves popularized and set the trend with the first Switch in 2017, and that has become one of the best-selling consoles of all time, and rightfully so. The problem is the very trend they started took off faster without them, and other companies like Valve are now riding that wave higher than Nintendo and doing much more to bring gaming on the go at a competitive price. Nintendo, meanwhile, is just coasting. Coasting on a legacy built by people who no longer work there or have long since passed on. Coasting on the backs of fans who are so desperate for an upgrade to play their games at a stable frame rate or resolution that they'll cheer on anything with a Nintendo logo on it, but this isn't the same Nintendo. Gone are the days of their systems having some of that Nintendo magic, putting those small details throughout their games and the experience that help set them apart from their competition. I was never the biggest Nintendo fan. I would buy a handful of games from them every generation, and I always respected, admired, or even praised the level of quality, passion, or creativity that went into the development processes of their games and their systems. Now, they'll give you the bare minimum slot because they already know that enough people out there will buy it regardless. Expectations and standards be damned. These days, it's just shut up, stop criticizing my favorite multi-billion-dollar company, and fall in line. I miss when people would get outraged enough to actually make a difference like they did in 2011 when the 3DS launched at $249.99 with an abysmal launch lineup, and people actually voted with their wallets, and Nintendo responded by being forced to drop the price just 6 months in to $169.99. Do you think enough people out there are upset that the Switch 2 has a $100 price premium everywhere outside of Japan? Probably not. Do you think we will really see a 6-month price drop like we did with the 3DS in response? If I had to be a betting man, I'd say no. I would love to be wrong though, just to put that out there so that the system's more accessible for people, especially in this day and age, but I don't think I'm going to. Because hell, we got price hikes on the accessories after it was announced, but before the damn thing launched. Also, as a side note, as I've recorded this video prior to the system's launch, I cannot help but notice a concerning lack of press coverage. Where are the reviews? Where are the first impressions? It's been stated that Nintendo has refused to send out review units to content creators and media outlets. Why? This is a whole new generation of hardware. Why couldn't they be sending this thing out to let people get their hands on them and spread the word of greatness of what is it should be an exciting new time? Why are they so desperate to control the narrative of a product that is going to be one of their most expensive up to this point for the consumer? Why shouldn't customers be able to see and hear the experiences that others are having so that they can make an informed decision? Why should people have to make a blind purchase, especially in this day and age? Are they coasting that hard on the Nintendo brand? I'm honestly at a point now where I share the same sentiment that many others online appear to. It's time for this entire industry to crash and burn just like it did in 1983. And like last time, everyone needs to go down with it for the exact same reason: an abhorrent lack of quality control and soulish cash grabs everywhere. There was a time when engineers and creative types led this industry. Instead, it's just executives spreading like a cancer to every part of it. And Nintendo's late president, Hiroshi Yamauchi, said it best: an executive, regardless of his vast successes, is fundamentally just an executive who doesn't intimately understand our products. And you see that lack of intimacy, that lack of a deep level of understanding. Nintendo is no longer the standard bearer for quality. They are the cancer of this industry, metastasized.